You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and today, on this May 30th, 2022, we are getting into the USFL Power Rankings for week number 7 after a big weekend where two teams have now punched their tickets to the USFL Playoffs in the New Jersey Generals and the Birmingham Stallions. I am going to, as I always do, rank every single team from the bottom to the top, starting at 8 all the way up to number 1. So make sure you comment down below, let me know where you think all 8 of these teams stand after 7 weeks of action, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button so you don't miss out on all the other stuff I got coming your way as we roll through the NFL's offseason, as we discuss here as well. If you're somebody who just follows the USFL stuff, we talk NFL here as well, and the remainder of the USFL season. So without further ado, we will start at the very bottom, and there has not been a ton of movement, I guess you could say, with the bottom portions of this power rankings. I'll start at number 8, and they've been here now for a couple of weeks. The Pittsburgh Maulers are sitting at 1-6, and after watching that game go down earlier on Sunday, I've got to say, I'm left with the question of what on earth was going on during that final drive heading into halftime. They were moving the ball comfortably. You could see that Vad Lee wanted to try to get even within field goal range, never mind to the end zone. There was a big miscommunication thing going on between player and coach, and it kind of boiled over late into the game as well, where Vad Lee ultimately ended up getting benched, and I don't really think it was the right idea considering how close the game was. There was clearly a disconnect going on between those two. You could even hear the audio where the Maulers head coach was heard saying that he was very disappointed in Vad Lee. And at another point as well, you could hear him even yelling at Vad Lee for missing a throw, and he was just telling him, do what you're coached to do. Why are you doing that? It feels like almost already in 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a strain in the relationship between those two. You know, Vad Lee was the hero just a couple of weeks ago. Last week, not necessarily the best. And this week, I mean, while it wasn't great either, I don't know if I can really get behind the offensive play calling or even just the decision making at this point with clock management and everything at all with the Maulers. I think that they are definitively the worst team in the USFL, and I don't really want to put it all on the players here. There's a large discrepancy from the Maulers coaching to every other team that's in the USFL right now. Maybe you could argue that what's going on sometimes with the Michigan Panthers might leave you head scratching, but I just feel like week in and week out, I'm left disappointed by the coaching staff of the Maulers, and I've talked about this a lot in the power rankings. Madre London had a good game, 18 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Defense was actually pretty solid. They had 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. They had a pick, 6 pass breakups. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that these offensive woes just continue to pile on for them because the defense in some games looks actually fairly solid, and they kept them in this game as well. But, you know, when push comes to shove, it was a tough game for the Maulers. They're sitting at the bottom at number 8. Going into my number 7 pick here, and this is another team with just issues that show up each and every single week, and it's almost like an on-running joke now at this point, and it's kind of sad. The Houston Gamblers are sitting at 1-6. After, storming out to begin the first half of the game, you got 7 points in the third quarter. You disappear offensively the rest of the game, and then, I mean, not only did you not do anything really in the second half after you scored that touchdown in the third, you proceeded to go missed field goal, interception, fumble, safety to end the game, disastrous final 4 drives, and your defense lets up 20 points, not to mention the safety at the end of the game that the Stars are able to pull off as well. I mean, just another late game, second half collapse where, I mean, it's like a joke on the internet at this point. I hate saying that, but it is. I mean, people, I was seeing the Gamblers when they jumped out to like that early 10-0 lead, people were like, oh, here we go. Everything's looking good. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. It's just a constant thing. I will say that, it did really hurt the Gamblers to lose both Clayton Thorson and Mark Thompson. So, there obviously was that to deal with this week, but I mean, it is something that has been happening each and every single week. And I mean, injuries happen. It is the game of football. Unfortunately, it was to, your starting quarterback and like the engine to your offense. I will say Kenji Bahar, I think he deserves some more looks. 10 of 13, 101 yards, a touchdown. He did have the second half interception that really kind of put the nail in the coffin where, the Stars were able to flip the script and essentially take the lead the following drive. But overall, just a tough outing for the Gamblers. Defense, though, I want to shout out them. Couple of interceptions. Donald Payne had the pick 6 early on. 4 tackles for loss. They also had 3 pass breakups as well. Again, one of the biggest, I tweeted this out too. They're like an anomaly because they are like near dead last or last in a ton of defensive categories. And then they're like second and first when it comes to sacks and turnovers, sacks and turnovers. It is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. They're so aggressive. They're able to force so many turnovers. And sometimes the offense takes advantage of it if it's happening in the first half, but in the second half, they don't. A bizarre team to say the least. At number 7, Gamblers. Then coming in at number 6, the best of the worst at 1-6 as well. The Michigan Panthers, they were also number 6 last week, so my bottom 3 teams, no movement whatsoever. This is another loss and a tight one, but I will say this. Josh Love provided at least a little bit of hope. Obviously, they ditched Shea Patterson this week. He was released, and he is now actually on the opposing team. He was on the Breakers sideline trying to spout off on what they were trying to do and everything like that. You could see him on the sidelines doing it. But just an inability to finish drives is really what tore them down and held them back in this game here. Kicker Cole Murphy, fantastic game by him. 4 or 5, he had a 60-yard long. It's really unfortunate that he missed that final 54-yard field goal. But overall, I mean, it's unfortunate that they had to send their kicker out 5 drives to kick field goals. It's excellent for him that he was banging pretty much all of them except for that 54 after he knocked in a 60-yarder. He's probably going to find himself on an NFL roster, at least like within the offseason, like training camp or something like that. I feel like he's got to get a look with a leg like that. But, I mean, you got to finish drives. You need touchdowns to win. If even like 1 or 2 of those drives end with a touchdown, this game is a complete different story. Panthers can run away with this one. And that's not, all jokes aside. I will say, though, the running game continues to do its thing. Reggie Corbin and Cameron Scarlett combined altogether 7.8 yards per carry off of 19 carries at 151 yards and a touchdown. And this is on a Breakers defense that I believe going into this game was the second best run defense in the league. And they just did their thing as they have been all season long. Defense was pretty solid. They had a sack, a couple tackles for losses, a forced fumble, 3 pass breakups. They definitely need to be more disruptive, though. They need, you let up, 27 points offensively, and like that late, and we'll get into that more when we get to the Breakers, but like the late catch at the end of the game, essentially, where Adams was able to, secure that grab and put the Breakers in position to go ahead and like kick the field goal. Like your defense needs to be more aggressive, and in a situation like that, especially like that, you essentially blow the game right there. That's where it all comes undone. You let that catch happen, and it's like big momentum has swung the Breakers' way. You're gonna lose this game now, and that was the end result. Panthers lose. They're sitting at 1-6. There's 3 teams now that I don't know how they're really in playoff contention anymore, but they are, mathematically speaking. Theoretically, the Bandits could lose the rest of their games, and one of these teams could sneak in. But things are not looking good for these bottom 3 teams sitting at 1-6, so far behind everybody else. Then coming in at number 5 to round out the bottom 4, the Tampa Bay Bandits still sitting here, and they're sitting at 3-4. Teamu, not a good game. 46% completions, 237 yards. He had a touchdown and 3 interceptions at that. He struggled the majority of the game. He was doing the kind of late game thing where the defense gets a little bit softer and he's trying to battle back, but it's not a recipe for success week in and week out. You'll get lucky every now and again and you'll win a game or 2 that way, but 3 turnovers early on. They're lucky the game was as close as it was, so I will give them that, but I want to credit this defense because despite those 3 turnovers, they were doing their thing, trying to hold this game together. And it's the whole, offensive struggles, turn the ball over, and then trying to race back at the end. It's not a good look for the offense there. The run game definitely needs to receive a little bit more attention. I do want to note that Washington had 8 carries for 41 yards, and they did not really go after him or utilize him, I guess you should say, more often than they should have, or often enough as they should have, because he was gaining some ground. 8 carries, 41 yards. That's not a bad split right there. That's over 5 yards a carry. Try running the ball a little bit more. We need to see a little bit more of a balanced attack. I know that the Bandits brought in Jordan Teamu because he was supposed to be the best, one of the best quarterbacks to go after here, but I think that the Bandits really need to focus in a little bit more on the ground game here, because this one-sided unbalanced attack is not going to be. They're not going to make the playoffs if they keep playing football like this. I don't really see it happening. So a little bit more of a balanced attack. The defense, if they can get some help, I think could continue to be at least formidable the rest of the way, but the offense, especially on the ground, needs to pick up the slack, and those turnovers have got to go away for this team. Coming in at number 4, and this was a tough one for me because I've been weighing on this idea at least for the last couple of weeks now, and this is also going on with the 1 and 2 spot as well, but I decided to make the move here first because I'm more comfortable with this than I am with the other. I have the Breakers at number 4. And I understand that they beat the Philadelphia Stars, back in week number 2. I get that. It has been a long 5 weeks since then. And this New Orleans team and the Stars, they do not look, and they are not built the same way necessarily, at least more so the Stars than anything else. Sloter kept the ball protected. He's 15 of 24, had 182 yards, couple of touchdowns. Zach Smith even came in. I'm not 100% sure what was going on there. I was listening to the game without sound when that one was going on. But for whatever reason, Zach Smith came in, 5 of 8, 46 yards. He had a touchdown. Pretty impressive himself. Altogether, the quarterbacks, over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Solid outing for them. Jonathan Adams had 2 catches in this game. 2 catches. 1 for a touchdown. The other was that big catch at the end there, and it was essentially the savior for the game, making that grab to allow them to kick the field goal and send it into overtime. I cannot understate his value to this offense. Him and Canella. I feel like Canella's another one that he does not get enough love, but he seems to come up in some pretty solid spots. The ground game looked really good as well, as it has been overall, but I really want to give the credit to the defense. They came out on fire early on in the season. They have slowed down incredibly compared to where they were the first few weeks of the season, but they're playing solid, somewhat disruptive defense. Again, as we talked about it with the Panthers, they held them to 5 field goal attempts. Those are 5 potential touchdown drives that ended up with only 3 points. So good on them for that. Bend, don't break is the saying there. But overall, with 5 fumbles total, 2 that were lost, I am a little bit nervous about this Breakers offense and just the amount of turnover potential and turnovers that they do have. Some weeks more than others, but even just the fact that the ball left your possession 5 times and thankfully only disappeared from you twice, protect the ball. The way a team like the Stars, the Generals, and the Stallions are playing, you cannot beat those teams if you are potentially even giving the opportunity to give the ball away 5 times in a game. You're just lucky that it bounced 3 times in your favor there. That's, protect the football. I'm a Breakers fan. I'm a little bit worried about the team, but I'm fine with them at 4. I still think that they're a playoff team. The offense is a little bit shaky right now, and I want to give the defense credit where it's due, but let's protect the football over on the offensive side. The Philadelphia Stars coming at the number 3 spot. They're sitting at 4-3 now, lesser of a record, and a team that the Breakers already beat, I know. But as I kind of briefly touched on when I was talking the Breakers, this team is not really working the same as it was, and it's actually not even built the same at the quarterback spot. Case Cookus was not the quarterback. The running game was not really the running game was actually fairly strong in their game against the Breakers, but you need to be this balanced team that we've seen the last couple of weeks if the Stars really want to contend for a potential championship run here. I like what the Stars are bringing to the table. These last couple of weeks, if they continue to play that style of football on offense, they're a team that they're the dark horse. I would consider them the dark horse to potentially win the championship here. It was ugly early on. Cookus got slammed on a couple of throws that turned into interceptions, one being that pick six by Donald Payne. However, things kind of slowed down. They took care of the ball. And, slow and steady kind of wins the race, I guess you could say, in this one. Not always, but in this one. And I want to credit the Stars for, and Cookus especially, for not falling apart and cracking under the mistakes and pressure that he kind of put on himself. The balance of this offense it was outstanding. 315 yards total. You had 152 rushing and 163 yards passing. Literally separated by 11 yards. Incredible balance. And I also want to credit the run defense. Because, again, I know Mark Thompson got hurt, but prior to him going down, he had 13 carries for only 47 yards and a touchdown. Considering what Mark Thompson, has done this season, that's fantastic. Run defense bunkered down. Pass defense forced the defense, tripping over my tongue here. Defense forced 3 turnovers, including a late interception there to swing essentially the fate of the game in their favor. I like the way the Stars are looking right now. Very balanced on offense. They're playing opportunistic defense, forcing turnovers, especially when it matters most late in the game. They're coming on hot at the right time. It maybe have taken them a little bit to kind of find their footing, but they're playing the style of football you need to play to win a championship. And again, Cook has turned the ball over with those 2 interceptions. He was completely slammed when he threw them both, and they were both very, very short of their target. If he can just, decide to maybe take the sack or just try to chuck it into the ground rather than lobbing it up when he does that, this game's not as close as it was. I'll tell you that right now. This game was a lot closer than it should have been because of things like that. But overall, I like where the Stars stand right now. At number 2, and like I said, the number 1 and number 2 spot, I have been doing a lot of thinking on the last couple of weeks. And coming in at the number 2 spot, I'm going to stay with the New Jersey Generals here. They were number 2. They've been number 2 for a while now. I'm going to keep them here. But this New Jersey Generals team, 6 straight wins. The only time they've lost is to the Birmingham Stallions back in week number 1, and it was in a cheek-clenching game. I'll tell you this, the defense, incredible, and at this point have pretty much staked their claim as the best defense overall in the league. 3 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. You have 3 interceptions, 8 pass breakups. You want to talk about a unit that came to play? That defensive unit came to play and came to work. Trayvon Askew-Henry, with the 2 interceptions that he had and the game-sealing pass breakup in the end zone to essentially win the game for them, dude was playing out of his mind. He showed up in a game that the Generals really needed him to. Again, it was a tight contest, 20-13 finish here, and it came down to literally that play. If he doesn't break that up, that's a touchdown, and that game's tied, and who knows what happens, or potentially tied. It's 2019 at that point. If they hit the PAT, it's tied. Who knows what happens if he doesn't make that pass break up in the end zone. He deserves all the love, and I hope he got the game ball this week. Luis Perez played very clean, manageable football, 76% completion percentage. He had 174 yards and a touchdown. Excellent job by him. And then Darius Victor, 89 total yards between the ground and the air. He had himself a rushing touchdown as well. Continues to be a very strong running back for this team. The Generals feel like the most complete team right now, unless you're talking the Birmingham Stallions. And even then, it's somewhat arguable because it feels like the Generals play a little bit cleaner, whereas the Stallions, their first half offense can be a little bit shaky, but it's just that second half that they're able to turn it on and pull out wins out of when it doesn't even feel like they're going to win a game. It's incredible what they do, and that's why the Stallions are sitting at number 1. The other team that also clinched the playoffs, I don't know if I said that about the Generals, but both of these teams now have clinched playoff berths here. They were handed letters as they were walking off the field as a congratulatory gesture. Really exciting stuff. 7-0, the last remaining undefeated team still. An ugly win, but a win nonetheless. Wide receiver injuries definitely getting the best of them this week. Alex Magoo, their backup quarterback, was catching passes, or trying to catch passes, I guess you should say, trying to catch passes for them. Victor Bolden caught a really big bomb early on to start the game, kind of set the tone early, but it didn't really amount to too much afterwards for him. I really thought he was going to have a monster game because of that, but he made that big catch, ended up getting hurt. did not really do a ton. Marlon Williams was already out, so really thin at the wide receiver position. This is one of those things where it's like, I really wish the USFL, like, I know that they just expanded the roster and practice squads a bit, but like, you got to give these teams like at least like 50-man rosters or something like that. Like, come on. The fact that, the Stars were dealing with offensive lineman injury in their game, and then, them dealing with the Stallions dealing with the wide receiver injuries that they had, and like, you have your backup quarterback playing wide receiver here. Thank goodness Alex Magoo is like somewhat athletic and can kind of fill that role. It does not amount to good football. Like, you just give them a few more players. Fox has all the money in the world to support adding a few extra guys and paying them the $45,000 for the season that they're paying these guys. Like, come on, let's be real here. I know for a fact that these TV companies have the money to support, because I know Fox is kind of paying for a large majority of this. They have the money to support a few more players on each team so that your product will look better. And we're not sitting here talking about Alex Magoo catching passes for the undefeated 7-0 Birmingham Stallions, trying to keep their undefeated season alive and clinch a playoff berth here. Like, my goodness, let's be serious. The run game, really good. 5.2 yards a carry altogether from all the running backs, and also off of 38 carries, 199 yards, couple of touchdowns at that. Bo Scarborough obviously led the way there with his 100 and some odd yard game. I didn't write down the exact number, but run game looked good nonetheless. Very serviceable, helped push them through for the victory in this one here. They had the giant fullback rushing touchdown. That was awesome as well for Holly there. Jamar Smith, though, and this is why I was saying that I feel like the Generals are a little bit more balanced, is because he just has some weeks, man, where he does not look great. 9 for 24, 138 yards and a pick. Not his best performance. This is the second time where he's had a game like this where just his completion percentage was god-awful. Defense, though, looked good, looked the part. 3 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. They also had 3 pass breakups as well. Defensive tackle Willie Yarbury looked really good. Couple of sacks there. He was 2 of the 3. Overall, though, the Stallions do still sit at number 1. I think they're still the best team, at least for now, but I will say that the Generals have a strong argument and conversation to be had about being the number 1 team right now, despite the fact that the Birmingham Stallions beat them in week 1. A lot has happened since then. The teams have changed a little bit. I would like to see these two teams go at it again, and I don't know necessarily off the top of my head if they're going to play again. I have not looked that far ahead in the schedule. I'm just kind of taking this week by week. If they're not playing again, I hope they meet at some point in the playoffs. If they are playing again, I'm really looking forward to that opportunity of seeing that again. But I like the Stallions at number 1 for right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. That is my power rankings for week number 7. We'll, of course, do picks later on Friday, so make sure you check that out as well. There's some of my NFL content as I'm rolling through the offseason, giving out draft grades until we start getting into a better, more newsworthy time of the year. From every now and again, I'll talk about a news topic, but right now, just kind of focusing on draft grades, breaking down all the teams, and just kind of seeing how they did, giving my way too early draft grades. But that is it for me. I appreciate you guys for watching. I'll catch you all next time. Have a good one.